All right, we are live. Live, live, live.
Sweet.
Welcome, everybody, to the podcast. Tonight
Yep.
it's just going to be me and Antonio. We've been a little time off, but we're back. So, Tony's going to do some BSing about the shop, about customers, talk some crap here and there, get all of our frustrations today.
And with it,
But
you
we do
get to
got,
hear it.
yeah, you're gonna hear the frustrations of a pro shop tonight. I can promise you that. But
Yeah.
we do have some cool podcasts coming up, guys. We do have we've got some pretty cool guests lined up that we're gonna start rolling through and getting some videos done. So it should be fun. Should be exciting. But
Yeah.
one thing, Antonio, I don't think I've ever asked you is how you got into archery.
Yeah. So, kind of a long story. I started shooting bows
It
when I
can't be
turned
that long. You're
11.
25 years old.
Yeah, it feels like a long time ago. So yeah, my 11th birthday, my brother gave me my first bow, and it was an old bear at a 30-inch draw and 60 pounds, and didn't work for me at all. I used to slap the crap out of my arm, but I fell in love with it. It was fun. Something I could do after school, go home, shoot my bow in the yard. Um, and then eventually he ended up upgrading a bow, and I got his old bow. It was an old, like a PSE Brood X that we were able to set to my draw length, lower the poundage, kind of a grow with you bow. And I shot that bow every day for 3 years. I mean, I put hundreds of arrows through it every single day to the point where I was getting pretty decent in my mind. I thought I was hot shit. I thought I was the best archer in the world. Um, Turned 14, bought my first brand new bow down at PSC actually. Um, Brand new right off the shelf. Um, had it set up for me there. Then I kind of started really getting good. And then I started tinkering with stuff. Started putting on drop away rests, putting on slider sights. And I was that YouTube kid. I did everything off YouTube. I was embarrassed and I couldn't really get to a shop. I didn't have a driver's license. So everything was off YouTube and I did it at home. And I'm sure all of it was wrong. Um, Probably more wrong than right. And then finally, by the time I shot my first deer at 13, yeah, 13, I shot my first deer with it. Um, and then kept that bow until I turned 16, and finally, like, had a license now. I could go down to the shop. Kind of started getting some mentoring from the shop manager down in Tucson over at Bull Basin Archery from Jesse Lim, and he kind of told me everything on my bow was wrong. The timing was off. The draw length was wrong. The rest wasn't installed right. My sight wasn't level. Like there wasn't a single thing on that bow that was right. Um, so we went through it, tuned it, like went through the whole 9 yards, put new strings on it because the strings on it were, 4 years old at this point. And all of a sudden you realize you suck again because everything's right. Uh, so I went through this phase of just being absolutely terrible. And I was spending so much time at the archery shop trying to get better. I was like, man, I should just work here. Like I'm in high school, I'm getting out of school early. So I did. I applied, got a job. Fletch and arrows. That's where it all started. I think everybody, when they go into an archery shop, you start with fletch and arrows. It's a rite of
Yeah,
passage.
absolutely.
It sucks. Nobody likes fletch and arrows. I fletched a whole lot of arrows. I think in my first like 3 or 4 months, I fletched over 100 dozen arrows. It was ridiculous. Just um, after that, kind of filled all the racks up where we had a good overstock of arrows and we could start tinkering with my bow. And I started tinkering, putting in the press, taking the strings off, putting it together, changing my D loop, shooting through paper, playing with my draw length, half inches at a time, going longer, going shorter. And eventually things just started to click. Like, okay, this is what happens if I put a twist here. This is what happens if I take a twist out of this, or if I raise my rest, this is what happens. Um, then I kind of just started playing with it and getting building the confidence on my personal setups. To buy a new bow, bought a Carbon Defiant from Hoyt, which wasn't the best bow to probably start with at the
No,
level that I was at. It
no.
was probably I was probably overbowed. Um, and that bow just had a finicky tune. It was a hard bow to keep in tune.
It
But
was.
I got really good at it, and I was able. That bow really trained me how to use the bow press right, where bows aren't shooting out of the press, how to get my timing just right. That bow like to tune knock low. So like learning all those things through it, it kind of transferred into everything else. And here I am, almost 10 years later, still at an archery shop, still kind of playing with stuff and tinkering and at a
Yeah.
slightly higher level now.
Probably a lot higher level now. I mean,
I've
you're,
gotten to be pretty good.
for a guy that's only 25 years old, I'm always amazed that when I call you, it's like, man, it's something you've been doing this for 50 years. I mean, you're
Yeah,
we're pretty well versed in it. And, I know we bounce each other, ideas off each other's all the time. And, it's,
absolutely.
I tell guys all the time, I have guys come in the shop and they'll say, hey, I can buy all this equipment in here. I can do all this. I mean, you can buy all the equipment. It's knowing what you do with the equipment. That's stuff that you just, you
Absolutely.
don't just, I know there's some online schools out there and stuff like that. And I've seen some of their curriculums and I kind of laugh a little bit. Um, we hired a part-time guy in here recently and he's like, he was going to do his online school. And after about a week, and he was like, there's no way in hell I'd learn any of this stuff on this online course. And I go, it's a whole nother ball game when you're behind the bow press,
It's
man. And I mean,
exactly. It's very hard to learn online and tinkering. You
you need
you can get
hands-on.
really
That's
good
the only way
at
you're going to learn.
yeah. hmm
I,
you can get really good at working on your bow, but when you're not working on everybody's bows, it's hard to learn the nuances of every manufacturer, every different model. Because yeah, like I can grab a Hoyt Defiant, and with my eyes closed, I can tune it because I did it so many times. Um,
yeah,
and if you're that guy that only has that bow, great. Well, in a shop setting, we work on everything. We're not biased to one brand. We shoot PSEs, Hoyt, Matthews, Elites, Bowtechs, Primes. Like we work on all of them, and so you kind of have to know, hey, this bow likes this bow likes that. These manufacturers want this, and that's where it gets. That's where being in the shop setting is a lot of fun because you don't have to only work on Hoyts. I can say, hey, this works really well on a prime, but I want to try that on my Hoyt today. Or this works really well on my
yeah.
PSE, but I want to try something different. And you can see how that affects it. And then when you're going to your customer, you can explain those differences. And that's what's really
Well, and I
fun
think a
about
lot
our
of stuff
job.
too, when we're working on a bow, it's like once you learn how a bow works, the physics of a bow, you can grab almost any bow and say, okay, it should do this. If I do this, I should get this reaction out of it. And then there's times where you're
Exactly.
like, I'm not getting the reaction I need. And sometimes you completely go a 180. And when I should be moving the rest up, I'm gonna move it down just to see what happens. And also, oh hell, look, we're there. Bows react
Yeah.
differently, and I think, and again, all the different bows that we work on, and not just the bows are current on the current year. I mean, it's bows from I worked on a 19, I think it was probably a 1990 high country sniper the other day.
hmm
I mean, that's a bow that I shot back in 1990. I mean, and so you still got a lot of stuff coming in the pro shop. And that's the difference between what I think is what a pro shop is, and just what just another a regular shop is. You got to have people that can figure things out and understand how to get the best out of that bow. And you're just not
Exactly.
going to learn that on YouTube. I'm sorry. There's good stuff on YouTube. Don't get me wrong. I still
There
look at
is.
YouTube stuff. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
shit on YouTube, and you got to be able to weed
Oh
through
yeah.
that and find the good stuff. But if you don't know, it's like, well, tonight we're going to talk about arrow builds. And the reason we're talking about arrow builds, we had a guy come in here for his wife, setting up the arrow that he saw on YouTube that she needs to be shooting. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. And I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
you're an idiot. It's like, what in the hell? But of course, this guy back east on this social media guy, he knows more than anybody else in the pro shop knows. So that's the bad thing about it. I get guys that just want to say, hey, well, I saw you do it like this on YouTube, or this guy says you should do it this way. Well, that's not the
Yeah.
way I'm doing it. So,
Yeah, and arrows are if you want to tinker, arrows are a great way to tinker because it is something that you can fletch at home, you can play with. But there's definitely a formula that works 99.9% of the time for bows to get you the most accuracy and the most energy, absorbed through your bow. And that's kind of where our pro shops come into hand is like we know, hey, that this spine at this draw length is going to work really well for your bow. 99 out of 100 times. There's some nuances. Some people are very special, have super short draw lengths or super long draw lengths, and you got to kind of figure stuff out. But yeah, for the most part, you can figure it out off a chart, and it's
Well,
going to be pretty close.
yeah, and the charts that the boat company, the aero companies put out there, it's a guideline. There's a
Yes.
lot of variances in cam designs and things like that are going to change the effects of that. And
Hmm.
again, being in it and understanding, you can look at a guy and say, your draw length's this, your poundage is this, that bow you got is this. This is the arrow you need to be shooting. This is the spine. And spine is the most
Yeah,
critical. We all know the spine is the most critical thing when it comes to arrow builds. As far
absolutely.
and guys get wrapped up in this 1,000s, 3,000s, tolerances. I get it, but they didn't understand where that came from.
Exactly.
The tolerance we never had tolerances back in the day. It was this is your arrow. What arrow
Mhm.
companies started deciding is that hey, as we're cutting these things, depending on where we cut this thing out in the line, some of them aren't quite as straight as the other ones. So we can charge
Yeah.
more for these straighter ones. We can charge less for these, and that's where it became this kind of. I'm not saying it's a money grab, but in a way it is because I can make a 6,000th arrow tune just as good as I can a 1,000th arrow.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, as long as the spine's correct. Now, depending on the broadhead you throw on there and the arrow build encompassing it, it could change all that, obviously. But
Hmm.
for 90% of the people, it's going to be about the spine 100%. But as far as the tolerances go, I think guys get too wrapped up in the 1,000th versus 3,000th arrow. That's just a personal thought of mine. I know I'm going to cut shit for that for saying that, but
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's
And
the truth.
even, I mean, you're going to have variances in batches. You could have a set of 001 arrows, and maybe only 8 or 9 of those arrows in that batch are a true 001. You're going to have some bad arrows in there, and vice versa. Sometimes you're going to get a batch of 003s, and you're going to have 3 or 4 001s in that batch. And people, I was gonna say, I've shot both. I've shot 003s, 001s with broadheads and field points, and I'm not good enough to tell a difference with them. They group the same, they fly the same, and I like to think I'm a pretty decent shot. I won't say I'm the best, I'm not the worst, but I'm pretty good. And if they're grouping together, then who cares?
Exactly. Yeah. I think people way overthink it. I remember a few years, I was probably several years back, a guy came into the shop, actually in your shop, in Mesa shop, and he
Mhm.
grabs a bunch of the whole, we had like, I don't know, probably, 5 dozen arrows in the tube. He grabs them all, brings them on the table. He goes, I want to buy a dozen, but I want you to sort through all these and spin them for me. I want the best of them. I'm like, yeah, it's not happening, buddy. And
Yeah,
he was on I'll say who it was John Dudley. Apparently on a podcast said, your pro shop should be able to spin and pick out the best arrows that you've got. I go, it's just not happening. I go, we're not doing that. I go, what am I going to do with the other one? Send them back to Easton or Victory, whoever made them. I mean,
yeah,
again, we're overthinking it. It's like 95% of the people, this is great. Probably 97% of the people.
yep,
I put them through Hooter shooters and shoot them, from 3,000s to the 1,000s. Same impact. That does not
yep.
change. So that's kind of where, and now you're seeing so much with different types of fletchings now. I
Oh,
mean,
it's
it's
getting
almost like
crazy.
you can't keep up with fletchings
Yeah.
and configurations and FOC. FOC a few years ago, everyone went nuts on the FOC thing, and
Hmm.
and what people don't understand on an arrow build is that whatever you do on the front of the arrow, you have to compensate on the back of the arrow, and vice versa. So many guys will walk into a shop and they're like, "Hey, I saw this guy and he's shooting four fletch with a 3-degree helical, 2.6 AE. I want that." Yeah, but here's the thing: that guy was 6'2", shooting 73 pounds with a 31-inch draw length. Okay, you're five
Yep.
foot five with a 26-inch draw length, shooting 60 pounds. It's
Yeah.
not the
Two
same
different.
setup.
Exactly.
And that's where I get frustrated at. It's like, it's because you saw somebody shooting it, and they may be a great shot with it. Don't get me wrong, and it may work perfectly for them, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And they always
Yep.
leave out one aspect of it. They're like, okay, once I put like I got some arrows right here. Whatever I do on the back of this arrow, this is the drag, this is the steerability of that arrow. Hell, if I go, those two arrows right there, two fletchings are going to fly differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think
Different
that,
amount of drag,
but
different
whatever I
amount
do
of
back here,
weights.
whatever drag I have on the back of this thing, I got to compensate for up on the front. And I
Yep.
try to explain to these guys, I'm like, if I get a bunch of drag on the back and I don't have enough weight on the front, now the arrow's just porpoising because it's going down the thing, because this is holding
Yep.
the arrow back while the front's wanting to take off. And vice
Hmm.
versa. If I had too much weight on the front and not enough steering on the back, enough drag, well, now the back's doing one of these things. And I
Exactly.
just, but for most people, and I know that Bain study came out and that they did at the Easton Center, and it was interesting to
Hmm.
read. I don't think it was really conclusive on anything. I mean, if you want quiet, this
No,
is the vein. If you want stability, this is the vein. If you want, quick, reaction time with the body, this is the vein. So there wasn't like, hey, one vein just dominated everything. I mean, there's a couple up there that scored better than others. But for most of the
it's
people that are out there hunting, that blazer vein does just fine.
absolutely.
And I think that's where guys, they see something new and they think, I got to have it. So I heard tonight a guy literally shooting four veins with a 5 degree with a 5 degree helical on it.
That's
And he's
insane.
not.
And the amount of
He's
drag on
not.
that
I
has
bet
to
you
be
his draw
crazy.
length is 28 and a half inch draw length. I'm like,
Yep.
why? Well, somebody on YouTube just said, hey, this is the way you should do it, and he's doing it. I'm like, it's not a forgiving setup for you.
It's funny you bring up veins because here in the valley right now, five fletch is getting extremely popular,
Five
and
fletch.
it drives. Yeah, five fletch. Which I don't even know how to make a five fletch arrow where they're all equally spaced, but people are wanting that. They saw it on YouTube. I don't know why it's gaining so much popularity down here, but every time somebody comes in and asks for that, I tell them the same thing. I'm like, all you're doing is slowing that arrow down. You're creating a lot of drag. You're going to lose that on distance, and there's absolutely no need for it. I guarantee you that five fletch is going to group just as good as your four fletch. Is going to group just as good as your three fletch. But you're paying for two extra vanes. You're slowing your arrow down. You're creating all that drag, and it's unstable. It might group great at 20, 30 yards, but you start shooting
You would have
60,
to
70
run so
yards.
heavy a front on that to compensate for that,
Yeah, you'd have to have 200 grains up front at least on
at
like say
least.
my setup 29-inch draw. I'd have to have at least 200 grains up front to balance that out where it makes sense, and there's just no need for it.
Where did they come up with
um,
five? Well, I mean, this somebody pulled that out of their ass. I mean, and I remember back
yeah.
in the years ago, we were making we were taking those AAE feeder veins, and we were doing a six
Hmm.
fletch with them. It was kind of,
Yep.
actually think Randy Ulmer kind of started that, I think, at one time.
Yep.
And it was kind of cool. I mean, it was a neat thing to do. And it wasn't hard to do it, but it was kind of useful. I started doing some testing with them, like, other than it's just cool looking, I mean, why are we doing this? And we had
That's
guys
all it's for.
that's all they wanted. They wanted the six fletch, and it was a cool. Now, I'll tell you this: when we were shooting 3Ds with guys doing that, I loved it because that was a freaking orange freaking beacon sitting out there on that target. Like, thank you
Oh
very
yeah,
much. But
flowered up.
I just, I think it was just a fad. We went through that fad, and granted, we were doing it. We were like, oh, it's pretty cool. But at the
Oh yeah.
same time, it went away. And now we're doing a five. I mean, I just don't get where the five. I mean, I've seen the Jim Burnsworth back in the day. He was doing the offsets. Remember that? He would do like a vein and a vein and another vein over here, something like that. I was like,
Yep.
that's the stupidest freaking thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, all you're
It's
doing,
it's hard
it's
to
all about
be.
drag.
That's all it is. But it's also hard to be consistent from arrow to arrow when you're doing something like that. Because
Yeah,
there's not a jig that's designed for a five fletch or to offset your veins. So you get one arrow made, it's very hard to replicate that arrow 12 times in a dozen arrows exactly the same. And that's what I
true.
tell people like archery is all about consistency. The more consistent you can have it, the more consistent your shot process is, the more consistent your arrows are. Everything, the more that everything is exactly the same, the better off you're going to be because now it's all on you. Like, take all your equipment out of the factory because all that's taken care of. Focus on your shot. And people don't like, everybody wants to blame their equipment. Nobody wants to assume it's them. So they try to change
Yeah,
equipment constantly. And we see it all the time. I mean, here at the shop, you had a guy who have his bow perfectly tuned and then he'll go home and he'll change arrows. And then he comes back and he's like, well, my bow's not tuned. And it's like, well, yeah, you switched arrows on us. Like, we tuned it to an
yeah,
axis and now you're shooting a victory, you know?
yeah. Yeah, well, it's always equipment. People spend so much time tinkering with their damn stuff. Just go shoot your damn bow and shoot it a lot.
Yeah.
And you said you hit the nail on the head when you said consistency. I don't care if you're doing a book wrong. If your
Yeah.
form sucks, it's the worst. But if you're doing it consistently wrong every single time, you can make that work. You can be accurate. And that's
Yep.
the thing about archery. It's about doing it repetition, time again. Once you, especially with an arrow, you throw a broadhead out there now, a fixed blade broadhead, and if it's
Yep.
inconsistent from arrow to arrow, well, now you're chasing your tail. You don't know. You're making adjustments on stuff that's from arrow to arrow. You're pulling your hair out. You're frustrated. You think your bow's not in tune when it's your arrow build. So,
Exactly. Oh.
well, I
And
what started this whole conversation was I had this guy come into the shop, and I'm not gonna tell you his name, but his wife had a late archery bull tag, and so he's getting her arrows. I'm like, cool, let's get you set up. He's like, I want an Axis 340. He goes, I want a 2.6 with a 3-degree helical on it, and I want her shooting 125 grain tip on it. I'm like, what, how much? What? And she's standing right there. She's literally, if she's 5'2", she'd be tall. I mean, I'm
yeah.
like, well, what's the pounds of her bow? And he's like, it's 45 pounds. Like, let me see your bow. And I walk over. It's an Infinite Edge with the Octane 3 bristle rest on it. And so I
Perfect.
pull it up on the scale, and it's 38 pounds. I'm going, there's no way this arrow setup's for. Oh no, there's and some guy back east. His wife shoots the same setup, and she kills animals left and right with it. I go, well, she may be
Yep.
shooting that arrow, but I'm guessing her bow is not the same setup that your wife's bow is set up. And he argued with me, got a little lippy with me. I'm like, hey, I'll build them, whatever. Worst arrow setup ever for a woman. I'm like, why are
Yeah.
we doing this? I mean, I know guys that don't shoot 70 pounds with 29-inch draws that don't shoot that kind of a setup.
Yep.
And that just got me thinking, I'm like, man, and I get it. You're on social media, you're on YouTube, somebody says to do it, they're the authority. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to learn the hard way, apparently. So I haven't seen them after. I want to see how this hunt goes and see how many bulls she stuck or we'll see her
Yeah.
hero picture. But I'm guessing
I
some will be a very
remember
successful
when
hunt.
yeah, I remember when the Ashby arrows were getting real popular, build super heavy arrows, super front and center.
Yeah.
Um, I can't remember, this was 4 or 5 years ago, where they were gaining tons of traction. People wanted them. And we would have guys in the shop they're there with their wife, 25-inch draw, 40 pounds, kind of similar setup. And they're wanting her to shoot a 550 to 600 grain arrow. And it's like, well, what are you hunting? Well, we have a javelina hunt. Okay, well, you don't need an arrow that big. Like, you don't need an arrow that heavy for 98% of what you're going to be hunting. And the thing is, at her draw length and her poundage, it's almost impossible to build an arrow that heavy unless it's a full length arrow. And even then, it's going to be way too stiff for her. And it's just, you're going
Yeah.
to end up with a massive headache because this bow is not going to shoot the right way. On top of that, she's going to be shooting 40 feet per second because it's so heavy. She has no energy behind it.
Yeah. She came shoot 20
Um,
yards with that bow. It's,
yeah.
it's,
And
and I've always said with women's arrow setups, I believe speed kills. And with
yep.
women, because of that short draw length and the low poundage, you take that feet per second number and you square that number and that kinetic energy, it helps out tremendously.
Yep.
And I mean, it's great to have a heavy air. I'm all for, I used to be a real light speed guy. I mean, it was like I shot a 360 grain arrow forever. I mean,
Yep.
elk, deer, didn't matter. I was at 360 grains. I wanted the speed. Now my arrows, it's flirting with that 510 area is usually where my hunting arrow is at now. But back in the day, I was all about the speed, and I get it. But in a heavy arrow, definitely tracks better. The momentum numbers are better with a heavy arrow. But
Hmm.
she doesn't have the energy behind that to get to that
No.
momentum number. And that's the problem.
And
And I think that these guys say, hey, well, I'm shooting this. It's like guys putting their wives on an FMJ. It's like, no, don't do that.
no.
Let's put her in a Sonic or put her in a Velocity or something like that. Let's get her speeds up. Let her
Yeah.
shoot beyond 40 yards or something.
And that's what I was going to say. That's where it becomes very setup specific. And people don't understand that what works for me isn't going to work for you. What works for you doesn't work for me. I mean, you're what, 3 inches on draw length on me? Like, our setups are going to be very different. And husband to wife, your setups are going to be massively different. Equipment, like you said, that lady shooting an Infinite Edge. Well, that bow isn't as efficient. It's not going to be as forgiving as some other bows. It's not a flagship bow that's going to have that performance behind it. She's shooting, a RX-9 short draw or Lift RS, something that has a lot more performance built into those cams. Maybe it's a different story.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. It's a totality of the equipment and the setups, and everybody's
yes,
gonna be different on that. But I can tell you, Deanna has killed a lot of animals, with a very light arrow, and she shoots, her hunting setups, 54, 55 pounds, and she's killed a lot of stuff. But again, I try to get that speed number up for her.
yeah,
The FOC numbers, those all fall in line anyways. 90% of the guys get wrapped up in this FOC stuff. If you shoot a regular 100 grain tip with a regular insert in it with a blazer vein on the back of it, your FOC number's good. You're
yeah.
in
You're gonna
that,
be
10 to 13% anyways. So
exactly.
now I run a little heavier FOCs, but I also have a 30-inch draw length. I'm shooting, I shoot 73 pounds. I can get away with a little bit more heavier FOC on that, and I like the
Yes,
heavier FOC. And women just don't have it, or kids. Same thing with kids. I see guys can put their kids in bow arrows and like, oh man, that's you're just setting them up for failure. Is what you're doing. And nothing
yeah,
worse than having somebody go out there for the first time and stick a bunch of animals, not recover any of them. Well, now they don't want to hunt anymore. So let's make this a
exactly.
successful thing and make it a win for them so they enjoy this down the road. But I was playing with
Mhm.
some arrows the other day, and I was kind of last year I shot the Sonic, and I was playing around with it. And I run a pretty heavy front on it, but I was playing with these AAE hybrids, and they shot good. They're a little softer than I like, and I started playing with these new air razors on there. So I get a lot more drag with this, and I don't shoot heavy helical. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. I'm more or less like maybe one and a
Like
half
an
degree, if
offset.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not much. I don't run much of a helical on there if I'm running a bigger vein like this. But those two
hmm
arrows right there literally are within 2 grains of each other, and this is a 3 7/8, and this is a 4 inch. But what people don't realize is just the cut difference of a vein, how a vein is cut, how it disturbs the air differently. This
absolutely.
vein versus that vein, pretty darn close in size and things like that. But this one being that it's aerodynamic this way and it's more ramped up the top and curves out
Right.
the back here, it's a lot less drag than what this arrow's creating. This arrow's going to ramp up a little quicker in the front and it's going to drop off a little steeper on the back. Anytime you have that steeper front and steeper back, it's creating more drag. And so
Yeah,
when I see guys that just swap from a vein to vein, it's like you need to understand what the characteristics of that vein is that you're doing because it's going to affect the aeroflight. You can't just say, well, I think those
absolutely.
look cool, so I'm going to run these now or whatever. You can't go from shooting a parabolic and all of a sudden go to a much steeper, a lot more surface contact on that and having the steeper back and steeper front. They're not going to fly
hmm
the same. And for me,
No.
this thing, I love these things. They group really good, especially with broadheads on there.
hmm
I don't know. Guys get into the quiet and the loudness. I don't know how to figure that out. I mean, I remember one day years ago, Jill Larson and I were in the back, and we were shooting. I was standing behind the little barn thing, and he
Yeah.
was shooting arrows past me. I'm like, yeah, it's a little louder, it's a little quieter. I mean, we don't really know. It's about as scientific as we got back then. But I get that some veins are louder, and the blazers are. Everybody claims that the blazer vein's louder. But this literally revolutionized. When that vein came out, it revolutionized aero builds.
Well,
Before
and
this, we
there's
were
a
shooting.
reason why. Yeah, there's a reason why every aero manufacturer uses a blazer vane as a stock configuration.
Mhm.
It's an industry standard now. It works. It's proven. It's tried and true. Um, and for like you said, for 99% of your people, that's all you're ever gonna need. It's gonna shoot
Yeah,
great. You're not gonna have any issues with it.
yeah. I had a guy tell me the other day. Well, it was probably a couple weeks ago. He said that I go. He goes, "What veins you guys use?" I go, "Oh, we use a blazer vein, a blazer cut vein." He's like, "Oh no, I can't. Those things suck. I don't want those." I'm like, "They suck." Yeah. He goes, "Worst vein ever built." And you mean freaking animals a blazer vein has harvested? I mean, it's like,
Oh,
don't tell me they suck because there's been millions of animals killed with a blazer cut vein. I'm sure. It's like
Yeah.
I'm calling bullshit on that one.
Yeah, and you
But
can
again,
do it. I mean, I
we're
used to
getting into
be,
new things now.
yeah, and I used to be that guy that I wanted to sit there and I wanted to tinker with everything. You know, I shot lasers, I shot heat vanes, I shot Q2I vanes, I shot AAE vanes from three to four, well, three and four fletch. And after all of that, I went, I stuck with the heat vane with a three fletch 2 degree helical. And I really haven't switched in since 2018. That's what I've been shooting. Cause
Yeah.
now I tinker with everybody else's setup constantly. I don't want to mess with my bow. I want something that I know shoots good. It shoots broadheads fine. The vanes stick well. I know exactly what I'm gonna get out of it when I put them on my arrow. So I just kind of stick with it. And people are always like, "Well, you work at an archery shop. You must tinker all the time." Yes, I do on your guys' stuff because you guys come in and want me to do that. My stuff, I don't want to mess with anymore. It's bolted down, it's locked in, it works. And until something comes out where I'm like, man, this is going to 100% change the game, I'm going to get 10 times better, I'm probably not going to switch.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm like, if it works, weld it in place. I don't want to mess with it. And
Yeah.
I'll tinker. I do tinker with arrow builds a little bit more because the reason I do it more than you think because all the stuff that's coming in and guys telling me, well, this is better or that's better. I want to be able to say, hey, it's really not. You know, I've tested this. This is what you need. And
Yeah.
I built that arrow. This is an arrow I built for when I went to Africa for buffalo, and it's a 900 grain arrow. And I just did a it's now you can see the helical on this one. I did a hard 3 degree helical on this. I
Yeah.
need a little bit more. I was shooting that Masai broadhead, and it was a big old 2 blade single bevel thing. I'm gonna need some. I need a little bit more drag on that. So I built that, and it flew phenomenal. But I would never shoot that much helical on my regular arrow setup. It
Yeah.
just spins too fast, and pretty soon you get that ass whipping. You know, it just spins. It's just it. And I get the guys' arguments that, well, the faster it spins, the more rifling you do. It's like a bullet, the more accurate it is to a point. I agree with that.
Yes.
But you can't have access of too much of anything. And from 99% of the guys out there, a 2 degree helical is more than what you need for a fixed blade broadhead.
Yeah. And and probably less for a mechanical if you're shooting a mechanical.
And you can shoot it straight with a mechanical. I mean, that's mechanical.
Yeah.
Now there are mechanicals that will fly, depending on the wings that are sitting out there, you can get a little different flight out of it. But for the most part, I mean, that's why mechanicals were invented to fly like a field
Yep.
tip. So, I tell guys all the time, if you're just shooting field tips, like I have guys that come in for 3D setups or 3D arrows, and they want a helical
Yeah.
on it. I'm like, why? You're shooting a field tip. You don't need to spin that thing like that. You don't build
No.
like a hunting arrow. The reason why we put helical on anything is to create drag to compensate for what's going on in the front of the arrow, namely a broadhead. And I go, you just don't
Mhm.
need that. So, in my competition stuff, I'll shoot like an offset. That's all I'll shoot.
Yeah.
Deanna shoots a straight.
Same here.
She's as straight as an arrow on all her veins. I'll shoot a
Mhm.
slight offset on anything, and that's more than I need. So,
Yeah.
we're talking about arrow setups and things like that. With the new bows coming out, and we're right back in that part of the season right now. It's a kind of exciting time. All the new bows coming out, and it's kind of Christmas
Yeah.
for us, getting open up packages and seeing what's out there. The arrow companies, it seems like every year are adding SKUs to. It's like Victory came out with this. What was it?
The
What's the size?
VLR, the
It's in between it.
rival.
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah,
It's
the
in
rival.
between a 205 and a 166 something like that, or a 246. It's like I'm like,
Yeah,
why
between
do
a
we even need
204 and
that
a
SKU?
246. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't get this. It's like there's too many choices out there, and
Yes.
it's confusing to people because again, it depends on what social media influencer they're listening to, is what arrow they want. And I mean,
Hmm.
I miss the old days of just a 246 arrow, for a hunting arrow. Let's just roll with that one.
Yep.
And now it's like there's so many different sizes out there and different weaves and things. It's like, my gosh, it's almost hard to keep up with.
Yeah, and that's not, I mean, not just hair, but that's everything. There's way too many options in everything.
Yeah.
Um, and
You know,
and
the
you can
color
go
of
down
bows
that
right
rabbit
now.
hole.
Well,
There's too
it's
many colors.
yes for bows. I miss the old real tree, mossy oak, and black. Those are your three
Yep.
choices of bows that you could buy back in the day, and it was so much easier because you could keep them on your wall. Now, one bow company's got 10 colors. It's like, how do you keep
Yep.
10 colors of a bow in the right size and draw length and poundage that they want? I mean, there's no way you can do it. It's
It's
crazy.
impossible.
And,
Yep.
and they just keep coming up with these new colors, and I get it. They're trying to sell more. They got to sell bows, and it's all about marketing. But man, it sure is a pain in the ass sometimes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of boat companies now are starting to. I mean, all the colors between all the manufacturers look fairly similar. I think every year it's like, how do I make my bow stand out? And
Yeah,
putting a brand new color on the wall does that for you because the other companies aren't going to have that color in theory. So it makes your bow
yeah,
stand out. Where hey, I walk in and man, that bow sticks out from all the other bows. Um, and it does. It draws your
yeah.
attention.
Well,
I get.
and I think too is like a lot of these bows aren't changing much from year to year. You'll go like
No.
2 or 3 years, and it's kind of the same bow. So really, all they can really offer is a new color.
Yep.
And it's like
New
I think
cosmetic.
that's I have said for years I wish boat companies would go 2 years on a flagship bow.
Yeah.
Um, I think they would sell more bows personally, and than having a boat every single year because sometimes they have the cram to try to just to get something out. And it's like, man, it's not that great of a bow, or it's not much different than last year. It's just the same cow, different lipstick. And
Yep.
I kind of wish that, if you left it out for 2 years, 'cause what happens is they release a bow company releases a bow. Well, then you're 3 or 4 months where you can actually get that bow in stock where you can actually start selling bows. And
Yep.
then by in the summer, July, they know that, hey, the new bows are coming out in a couple months, 3 or 4 months. So I'm going to hold off before I
Yes.
buy the bow. 'Cause I want to see what's coming out. You're really getting like a 6 month buying period of bows.
Yep.
Because imagine if, hey, I know that bow's gonna be the same bow next year. Well, now your fall sales, your winter, it all kind of keeps maintaining. Remember
Yes.
when the RX-7 came out and they kept that out for 2 years?
Yep.
Now I don't
We
know what
sold
Hoyt's
tons
numbers
of them.
were. We sold tons of RX-7s. People, there wasn't,
Yep.
hey, this is the same bow. It's gonna be the same bow next year. Okay, I'll buy it. As soon as you tell
Yep.
them, because when you start getting into that late summertime, I always get, well, when's the new bows come out?
Yeah. What do you know
October,
about the new
November.
bow? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
So
think I'll hold off and
no,
see
I
what those
agree.
bows are.
I agree 100%. It also gives your engineers at companies to kind of do a little bit more testing, kind of refine things where hey, from model to model, there is going to be a difference and it's not going to be a different mod screw or a different draw stop. It's going to be a drastic difference where you can really say, hey, this is a completely different bow. Where
People get
instead
excited
of
about
like,
it. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Now you got something it's a complete new animal. It makes them want when you look at a boat, it's like, hey, the only difference is the color, or hey, I got a different mod on it than what I had last year. Well, I'll just
yeah,
stay with the boat, especially with the way the prices of bows are getting right now.
yep,
Because like, I'll just keep my bow. My bow's fine. And so what they're doing,
hmm
they're buying a bow every 2 or 3 years. That's when all of a sudden there's a big change now. And so I wish there'd be more changes on a bow on a new model than what we're seeing. It's
yes,
just kind of simply it's just kind of
and
stagnant.
and spread out. I don't want new changes every single year. Um,
No,
because
engineers
then
can't keep up
it's
with that.
no, and you don't, the proper testing wasn't done with it. It wasn't, like I know boat companies are testing stuff, 4 or 5 years out already, but I just feel like, man, from year to year, they could be better, or like
Yeah,
I said, every 2 years, you'd see that difference where people would get excited about that. But and you don't lose out on like right now, we're gonna lose out on sales because we're going into holiday season, and people want that new bow, but you can't get them yet. But they're not buying
yeah,
the old bow. Uh,
yeah.
or if they knew, hey, that new bow is not coming out till next year, well, I'm gonna buy that bow today for my husband or for my wife, for my kid.
Exactly.
hmm
Yeah, I think bow sales would be more leveled out and not so peaked and valleyed if they would keep them out for 2 years. And I get it, boat companies they're all trying to be the first one out with something for the year, and that's how they think they're making money doing that, and maybe they are. I know on the pro shop side of it, it's frustrating because you're like, man,
Or it
then you
sucks
get the
for
new bow
us.
that you're waiting for 3 months, and you're like, and we don't know. We don't until they bring them to our door and we open up the box. We're looking at it for the first time. And it's like, oh, right, we get so excited. We open it up, like, ah, really? It's the same
Yeah.
bow. It's like wah
Yeah.
wah wah. And it's
Exactly.
just I had a guy, the new Hoyt showed up today, and the guy's like, "Why can't you haven't opened these up yet?" Well, number one, we can't, not till tomorrow. I go, but I'm not, I'm going to open up. I know what I'm looking at. It's last year's bow almost, and it may be. I don't know
Yep.
yet. I haven't opened them up yet. But when it's the same thing over and over again, you just kind of get, it's like, I'll see it tomorrow when I open it. I remember back. Do you remember when Bowtech used to they would do their big reveal at ATA? And it was
Yes.
like this huge freaking thing. They would have, I mean, for a month ahead of time, they'd have the countdown clock. And then when you got to the
Yep.
ATA, there was like all this secret stuff going on. They had bands playing, and they had this big. It was like you were pumped to see the new bow, and it was a new bow. Now it's just like
Yep.
by the time ATA shows around, we all know what the bows are anyways. Nobody's really revealing them.
Oh, absolutely.
But
And I've complained about this to you and to everybody. I wish all boat companies would launch at ATA. I think it would make it. I mean, we went to ATA a few years ago, and it was nothing but trail cameras, tree stands, and ground blinds. And for
yeah,
Arizona, it doesn't do us any good.
yeah,
But if every boat company was launching at ATA, where hey, it's dealer exclusive for the first couple days, and now they're opening it up to the to the public where everybody can go.
yeah,
If you guys launched everything at ATA, you'd have a way better turnout. Dealers would want to go because it'd be hey, I want to get the first look at these bows. If everybody's launching at ATA, I can see all of them at once, knock it all out in 1 week or one weekend, and I think you'd have a lot more buzz around it instead of launching them, November, October. But it lets us get through that holiday season, lets us kind of burn out all of our old inventory. Like this year, let us burn all of our 2025 inventory, and then 2026 you start fresh, which I think
well,
from
and
a shop
I'll tell you what,
standpoint.
absolutely. But also,
Mhm.
so in the West, the poor guys on the East Coast, they get screwed
Oh,
because their
100%.
seasons actually start in November. Most of them,
Yeah.
October, November. Well, they're right in the middle of a new bow launch, or at least ours. Our season kind of ramps up in that July. We start getting guys kind of cranked up for our August hunt. The
August
bows are still
hunts, yeah.
current; they're still out there. Those poor guys on the East Coast, they get hosed. I couldn't imagine being a pro shop on the East Coast because you got to have inventory in to sell for the peak of the hunting season. But yet
Yep.
during your hunting season, they're releasing a new
New
bow.
stuff coming up. Yep.
You're like those poor guys. I can imagine having a pro shop back east. If they would let them
Exactly.
ever get through the hunting season, and January is a clean start. Now we all start fresh again, and then hopefully by then, I'm not saying you can't have the bow ready in October, November for release, but now start building bows. Have
Have a
stock
ton of
built
them
up.
ready to ship. Yep.
Exactly. So come January, all of a sudden, here's our new bow, and hey, the shops have them. You can buy them right now. When you
Yeah.
guys, just because you release a bow in October, November, that's great. But if nobody can get their hands on and actually shoot their bows until January, anyways, what did you? I mean, you've. So what I see is, so you get somebody that comes in, and as a pro shop guy, we're not gonna lose a sale on him. Guy walks in and goes, "Hey, you got the new Matthews bow in?" I don't. I got the demo. Here's my demo bow. Well, I want it. Well, I don't. You're looking at 2 or 3 months, dude. But I do have this bow on the wall. Okay, let's look at that
Yep.
one. We're going to sell bows. That's our job. And,
Absolutely.
and that guy wants to buy a bow. If they would just all release at ATA, like you said, and ATA is not what it used to be because of that reason, I think. I mean, there's not
Absolutely.
there, and not just the bows, the rest, the sites. We all know what everything is before we even get to the ATA. We've already
Yep.
Most shops have already placed their orders for the year before they even
Before
get to the ATA.
before they even go.
The ATA
Yep.
used to be a buying show. It's not anymore. And we
No.
saw that when we were there. It's just dead. There's nothing. ATA is
Yep.
dying on that's why they're opening it up to the end consumer now to try to
Hmm.
revitalize this. But there's no excitement with the ATA anymore. Not like it used to be.
No. And I think if all the companies would get on board to do that, where accessories, bows, kind of everything all together, I think you'd have a lot more people showing up. It'd create a lot more excitement about archery. That buzz, is going to last longer. Where like right now, it's spread out between October and December. All new stuff is coming out. well, hey, if everything launches in January, that buzz is super excited. People are buying. Christmas season's over. Like it
Well,
just
now
it
you're into
makes
the
more
tax
sense. It's a
season.
fresh year. Yep.
Yeah, guys are doing tax seasons now. It's a slow time for archery shops anyways. Hunting season's over
Yep.
for all the archery shops. So that January, February, March, April till the tax start coming out again is dead is Deadville anyway. So it just increases buzz and kind of keep things rolling. I got found out today about a broadhead that somebody's releasing that we're not going to get till April.
Yeah.
Then why release it now? By the time
Exactly.
you actually have your broadhead hanging on hook that you can sell, the buzz is worn off. They've moved on. Four other broadheads have been released since then. It's like
Yep.
you're missing the marketing. I mean, it's great to get people pumped up about it, but if they can't get it, they're going to move on to something else.
Yeah,
So,
it's 100%. Like if I can't get it, you get me all excited about a new product. I want it today, but I can't have it for 4 months. Well, I'm not going to be excited about it in 4 months. I might
yeah,
remember it and go look at it, but I probably already bought a broadhead because I needed it yesterday.
yeah, yeah. And one thing
Um,
about us archers, we're impulse buyers. When we want it, we want it right now.
yeah,
That's
I don't like
that's
to
the
wait.
name of the game. Yeah, and then we're back into these colors and things like that, and all these varieties, and it's
Oh
like
yeah.
holy crap. But yeah, I think that the industry has definitely changed. I got into archery in '84 was when I first started shooting a bow, and the difference that it is today is I mean, just in the last 15 years I've seen it, it's changed so much. It's crazy.
Yeah.
The industry is a different industry. And I think it's because now people don't rely on their pro shops as much as they rely on the internet.
Yep.
And there are some pro shops, and we've all heard horror stories that just don't know what they're doing. I get it.
Yeah.
And we all make mistakes, but there's some pro shops that they just don't know what they're doing. And so I get where people want to work on their bows, and everybody. That's how I got in this industry, working on my own bow. When we
That's how I
back then,
started.
we didn't have a pro shop. I bought my first bow when I saved up. I started shooting in '84 through a Scoutmaster, and then I worked all my 15 years old. I washed dishes at the Elks Lodge to get enough cash. My
Mhm.
parents said, if you get half of it, we'll pay the other half. And a guy up in Lakeside, he had a little 12 by 12 shed behind his house in Old Man Hempville, and he sold PSC bows. And I remember going up there with my dad, buying a bow. I was like on cloud nine, but that was the only, it wasn't even a pro shop. He just had a few bows hanging on the wall. It was just an old guy. He had some fishing tackle in there and some bows.
Yeah, it
We
was
didn't
your
have
only
a
option.
bow shop. What's that?
So yeah, it was your only option.
That was it. And the
Mhm.
big box stores did not, there was no internet. I remember until Turkey Track opened up in Sholo. I think I was 18 when Turkey Track opened. That was like the first pro shop in Sholo, and
Mhm.
I mean I just hang out in there as a kid. Me and Fred Dan and I were dating in '89, '90. We got married in '90, and we worked part time at the archery shop, both of us, and
That's cool.
that was it. And then that was back when aluminum arrows, overdraws, the old TM hunters, rest, fine line
Mhm.
sights. I mean, that was back in the
Yeah.
day when, I remember seeing the first bow hit 300 feet per second. I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, we've reached the pinnacle. So it's come along. It's a lot different than what it used to be. But people who come to the pro shop to get advice and to learn how to do
Absolutely.
things. I remember going and Dave Stepp Senior being over there and asking Dave, hey, how about this and what about that? I remember going in that shop asking for a trail camera, and they looked at me like I had two heads. And I had seen it in a magazine, and it was a camera that you put on the tree, and it had a tripwire. It was a one shot Betty. You got one picture with it, and you put it across the game trail, and it would snap. It was like a 110 film on it, and
Mhm.
they're like, "What the hell? We never even heard of that thing." I'm like, "Oh, I just saw it on a magazine. And they laughed at me like you're an idiot. But now, like, trail cameras where they're at now, and like
Exactly.
so. Somebody asked me the other day, they go, "Hey, what's the one thing that you think has revolutionized bow hunting since you've been in it?" And I said the rangefinder, the laser rangefinder. And they're like, "Really?"
Mhm.
I'm like, "Absolutely." I go, "So I have this. I was showing a guy this the other day. Have you ever seen one of these?
No, what is that?
That's a rangefinder. So this was an old dial-o-matic rangefinder. You would sit there and you would look through the viewfinder, and you would there's an image in the viewfinder, and you would take it to the images would join up, and then you would look at your dial and see what your yardage was.
Rims.
And that was the rangefinder back in the late '80s. I think probably this one's probably, I think I got this one like in '92 or something like that. I think somebody came out with this one. Maybe a little earlier than that. That's what you would carry around with you, and they were off like 15 yards. They weren't even freaking close to being accurate. But when they came out with the laser rangefinder, I think that revolutionized bow hunting. I mean, as far as
Oh,
success rates go and
100%.
things like that.
Hmm.
And there's been a lot of things that have elevated and made it simpler. You know, bows getting more efficient, things like that. But personally, I think the rangefinder is probably the most beneficial thing that we've had, and I would say probably the release aid as well. Probably right there
I
with
was
it.
gonna say the release is probably a close second.
Yeah, I think that's probably right there. Pete Shepley was in the shop here the other day, 2 weeks ago, and we got to talking about the old days, you know, that guy, we're going to get him on a podcast because I mean, that guy's
Oh, he's
stories are
got
crazy, but
stories.
he was
Yeah.
telling me how back in the '70s, how he would sit there and he would watch Johnny Carson at night and make $2,000 sanding down plastic releases. And back then it was just a hook, plastic hook that came up, and you would rotate your hand until it popped off the string.
Right.
And he goes, I'd sit there and I'd cut him out at work. He worked for Magnavox, and which was a TV company back then. And
Hmm.
he would cut him out, and then he would sit there and sand him down, watching Johnny Carson, and then go to the archery shoots on the weekends and make a couple grand selling releases. That's how you got to start. And that's back in the '70s. I mean,
Yeah.
you stop and think archery's not that old. You know, I
No.
mean, I should take that back. Modern compound archery's not that old. You know,
Hmm.
it's early '70s. And I remember back in the '80s, bow hunters were like shied upon. We were not. I remember my dad telling people, "Don't tell people that you bow hunt." I'm like, "Well, what do you
Yep.
mean?" He's like, "Nah." He goes, "People hunters don't like bow hunters." It's kind of like how the archer guys don't like crossbow guys now. It's kind of how it was
Yep.
back in the '80s. You know, bow hunters were kind of they're looked down on because they were like the lower the totem pole, I guess, of hunters because we were bow hunting. Now it's look how successful
Now
it
it's
is
the
now and how
opposite.
huge it is. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's crazy what it's gone to now. But
Hmm.
I don't know.
One thing I want to touch, going back to arrows real quick. We kind of hinted on it. All the different diameters now. There's 6.5, 6 mil, 5 mil, 4 mil. There's 400 different options out there. I'm a 5 mil guy. I like that 5 millimeter.
Yep.
It's slightly smaller diameter, but you're not giving up structural strength on your insert. It's not micro diameter. You're still getting, the added penetration, less wind drift, all those kind of perks of going smaller diameter, but you're not sacrificing all that strength. With that being said, I really think there's a place for a 6.5, that standard diameter. I think that'll work for everybody. um,
Mhm.
4 mils, I get, like I think your Buffalo Arrow, if I remember correctly, that's like a 4 mil. Um,
No, it's a rip. It's a 205. I
that's a
ended up going a little
205.
bit bigger on it. Yeah, I started out with a 4 mil on that, and I changed my mind on it.
Yeah, and I just, from personal experience doing 4 mils, I get why people like them. There's micro diameter. You do get less wind drift. They penetrate better, without a doubt. But it's pretty minute compared to a 5 mil. And I just noticed in my testing, in my experience shooting them, inserts would bend easier or they'd break on you. And ultimately, for me, that insert, that's what hits first. It's broadhead, insert, arrow. And if that insert fails, well, then your entire arrow failed. That's the
Yeah.
way I see it, at least. So that's why I kind of shy away from 4 mils. I know tons of people are successful with them. I know they work really well. Me personally, I have bad luck. Like I swear, if something can go wrong, it's gonna go wrong, and it's gonna happen to me. It's just the way the world works. So I try to mitigate as much as I can. That's why I shoot a fixed blade broadhead, because if it can go wrong, it's gonna go wrong, and it's gonna happen to me. That's just my experience in life, thus far. What's your
Well,
take
I'll
on
I'll
it,
tell you.
Brian?
Well, on the 4 millimeter thing, I jumped on them. It took me a while to buy into the 166 arrow. And then I kind of got into it. Everything made sense to shoot it. Better penetration, things like that. But I'll tell you what I found. One thing when you talk about the inserts, on these outserts on these 4 mils, I find that if I shoot on aluminum ones, I tend to bend them, even in the targets. Like I'd be shooting when they came out of the Axis 4 millimeter. I was like, I jumped on board with it. I was all sold onto it. But I'm like, what in the hell? I kept bending and I wasn't shooting it. I'm shooting into a regular target, a 365 target. And
Yep.
so I started going to titaniums, obviously, things like that. But I'll tell you where my 4 millimeter thing was. So if I have a 4 millimeter shaft and I have my string on that 4 millimeter shaft, so if I come off on my release differently, and that string has to change a direction off my face or anything like that, it's now
That's
coming
going
off
to be
that
impacted.
into that knot at a different angle right now. And so if I only have
Hmm.
a 4 millimeter, it can't absorb. It's not I don't got 4 millimeters to work with. Whereas with a 5 millimeter or a 6 millimeter, 6.5 millimeter, I got more surface of that. Where, and this is just my take on. I'm not saying this is scientific or anything by any means, but
Absolutely.
and Tim Gillingham and I have had this conversation, and it's like if if it's off to the side, if I have a bigger shaft, it's going to absorb that a little more. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yeah,
It's more
absolutely.
forgiving that way. And so that's where I
Hmm.
kind of found it seemed like I grouped better, and I think that my off shots were less off when I went to a 5 millimeter shaft than I was with the 4 millimeter. And so that's
Yep, I
that's
can
where I
see
got
that.
off the 4 millimeter part at.
Hmm.
And I think and the 5 millimeters have come such a long ways, with the half outs and things like that now. I think it's a much better arrow. I mean, we're talking about wind drift and things like that. I don't know if obviously it's a bigger shaft. It's going to have a little bit more wind drift than what a 4 millimeter does. But I think the forgiveness
Hmm.
factor way offsets when you start going to a bigger
Right.
shaft than what it does with the 4 millimeter.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I think that 6.5 is like the ideal size for people for just an
Yeah.
all around arrow. I think
Hmm.
it's forgiving. The components fit well on it. You can still run some FOC if you want to run steel or brass in the front of it. Um,
Yep.
but I 4 millimeters, I get it, and it's a big thing.
Oh,
Guys swear by them. But I have not had good luck with the 4 millimeter. As
yeah.
far as grouping,
Same here.
when I throw a broadhead on there, I just do better with the 5. That's when I went to that Buffalo arrow. When I went to this is that stainless steel that Victory
Rip
makes.
SS.
I needed the
Yeah.
weight on it, and it was really my first time ever shooting a rip. And from this to my 4 millimeter was like night and day as far as grouping with it. And, when you throw that big side broadhead out there, and you're like, man, this thing's gonna fly like shit. I just know it's not gonna fly good at all. And I was surprised at how well it flew. I was like, my gosh, man, that thing. I mean, 80 yards. It's slow as hell. I could walk up there and probably grab it before I hit the target, but it flew really, really good. And I was
Yeah.
I was shocked at how well that arrow performed with that big old huge broadhead on it. So,
Oh, it's good.
but anything else?
Yeah. I think that was enough complaining on our part.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes we get to complain about things.
I mean,
It's people. It's funny when people talk about you own an archer shop, you work in a pro shop. They're like, man, that's so cool. You get to do that, and it is cool. Don't get me wrong. We get to talk hunting all day long, and we get to
yeah.
play with bows. I mean, it is literally the dream job. We're never going to get rich doing this job, um,
No.
but it's something that I enjoy doing. And I enjoy talking to people and educating people. There are people that come in here that I just hey, just kick rocks, man. I don't need this. They just want to argue with you, and they know more than you know. Then that's cool. Then go work on your stuff. Go. I got it.
Yep.
The one thing that frustrates me is with people that come to the pro shop nowadays. It seems like they come in, they ask you your opinion, and then they want to contradict what you're saying to them. It's like, dude, I
Absolutely.
get it. I have no problem with it. My grandfather used to tell me as a kid growing up, he would say, Brian, he goes, one battle test is worth 1,000 opinions. And I live by that. And I try to shoot, I mean, I can't shoot all the broadheads. I can't shoot all the veins. I can't shoot all the arrows, but I try to shoot quite a few of them. And,
Hmm.
and, I, and I, and I can tell you by looking at something now, that's probably not going to fly great. Or, hey,
Yeah.
that's intriguing. That may work pretty good. I'll go play with it.
Hmm.
So I think that, I guess it's like saying, hey, you know, you got skin in the game. You know, I've
Yes.
killed a lot of animals over the years. I mean, a lot. And I can tell you what broadheads have worked, what broadheads haven't worked, what arrows work. And I can tell you when people are overthinking things, it's like, man, just, you don't need it. I get, everyone wants the most accurate setup they can so that when they do screw up or something like that, it's not as big. I totally understand that. But I think the biggest
Absolutely.
thing is guys, go shoot your bows. I think Levi Morgan, was it
Absolutely.
you telling me that Levi Morgan did a video not too long ago where he had a bow that was completely out of tune and was
Yeah,
out there robbing
completely
hitting
out of
arrows like at 40
tune.
yards?
Yep.
I mean, that just shows you, it's like, you, I tell guys all the time, they talk about, you know, we'll do some podcasts about tuning. You know me and how I feel about bear shaft tuning. And,
Oh yeah.
well, that's gonna be a fun podcast. I'm gonna catch a lot of crap on this one, but
Oh yeah,
you
we're
know,
gonna
I don't
get
do
a
it. I
lot
don't
of
believe
hate
in
for that
doing it.
one.
What's that?
So we're gonna get a lot of hate for that one, but it has to get
Oh
done.
yeah, it is what it is. But I'll tell guys all the time. I go, my tuning process is it works for me. I'm not saying that bear shaft tuning doesn't work for you or whatever, however you want to do it. I get it. My process works really well for me, and and setting up that African bow that I was going for that buffalo, that showed me how accurate my setup is. And
Yep.
because I thought for sure there was no way in hell this arrow was going to shoot good, and it shot phenomenal. And so,
Yeah.
but I think I tell guys, don't tinker with yourself more than you tinker with your bows. If you grab my
Yep.
bow right now, my name on 2 paper, it's not going to, I don't know what kind of hole you're going to get with it, but it's not going to be a bullet hole. I promise you that.
I've found that 90% of my bow setups will get a quarter-inch right tear through paper. When I'm all said
Yeah.
and done and they're shooting phenomenal, they're grouping right, broadheads are flying good, I get a quarter-inch right tear. Most of the time, there's, I think, what bow was it? I think it was my Bowtech, my SS34. I got a slight high tear on it. But I've never had a bow shoot a perfect bullet hole when I'm all said and done. It starts there. All my bows start there.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I've gone into it where I've like, I used to be obsessed with getting a bullet hole. And then I'm like, you know what? I get it close.
Yeah.
And then when I get it close, I'm like, okay. My thing is I do a walkback tune. I love
Yep.
walkback tuning. It's for me, it's the most forgiving as far as shooting. I'm a big fixed blade broadhead guy. I'm not a big expandables guy. It works great for me. But I can tell you right now, if you got my bows and shoot them through paper, you'd be like, holy hell! I don't with the Hoyts. I always had a right tear with the Hoyts. When I'm
Hmm.
shooting PSC, I tend to get a little bit of a left tear with it, and I'm okay with that. Now, back in the
Yeah.
day, I remember target guys, archer guys would purposely have a left-hand tear in their paper. That's what they would tune their bows to. They wanted that bias in it. And
Yep.
back, do you remember when Hoyt used to talk? When they used to harp on the cam and a half system. You know, with the cam and a half, you take that arrow and you're actually pulling it upward like this, and
Hmm.
you're shooting the arrow down, which is
Yep.
it creates a bias in there. And the whole thing about bias is you can control bias. If you know what the arrow's doing, you can manipulate that and control that. If I hold an arrow and
Exactly.
I hold that arrow straight up and down like this, and it goes either direction it wants to go, well, if I hold it to one side every single time, I know that it's going to go that. I can work with that. And that was kind of with Hoyt's
Exactly.
whole thing with their cam and a half system. And what sucked for guys like me with 30-inch draw links and faster bows, it was hard to get that low tear out of those bows. And I think it was just driving
Yep.
us so hard down there. You know, you have to advance your top cams, all this stuff all the time. But I think guys just get so wrapped up in the bullet hole thing. And then they go out and they start group tuning or bear shaft tuning. You know, how many
And they
times you
mess it
guys see a
all
guy
up.
come into the bear? Yeah, I'm like, you just did everything we just spent all this time doing. You just blew it up. And what do you see with a bear shaft tuned guy? I can look at a bow, and I had a guy come in the other day, and he's like, "Yeah, don't tune it. I'll tune it myself." And I'm looking at it, and that arrow is up against the riser. I'm
Straight up
like,
against it.
"You been bear shaft tuning this?" Well, yeah. I'm like, "Yeah, it's not right, dude." Oh yeah, it is.
Nope.
I mean, those are not designed to be shot like this. They're shot to be shot down the center of the air. There's not an engineer out there that says, you know what? I think I want this bow to tune and shoot the best at a quarter inch from the riser.
Nope.
There's not an engineer alive that's saying, hey, that's the way. That's why they all tell you set it at 13/16 or 77 inch out as your starting
Yep.
point. And also, what do you do when you do bear shafting? Every right-hand shooter comes in and arrows into the riser.
Yep.
Every single one I've seen.
Yeah, and there's, I mean, I don't want to go too far into it because that's a different
Yeah,
episode. But
we'll get in the weeds here really quick.
there's a couple different types of bear shaft tuning that you can do. Oh, and people don't understand that. They just say, "I want a bear shaft tune." It's like, okay, well, there's two, three, maybe four different types of bear shaft tuning that you could do. All are
Yeah.
going to give you different results, But at the end of the day, you're gonna put fletchings on that arrow, and you're gonna shoot it with fletchings.
Yeah. I think it was Randy
You know.
Ulmer that told me one time, and don't quote me on this. It was him. Somebody says, "Well, when you go and balance your wheels, do you not balance them with the tires on it?" I'm like, "Well, no,
Yeah.
you balance them with the tires on it." Exactly. Because why are you shooting your now bear shaft tuning? Again, we're going down a whole freaking rabbit hole here, and you
Yeah.
get me started on this. I'll never shut up. But bear shaft tuning was designed for finger shooters. That's what it's
Yep.
designed for. Because you're putting a
Mhm.
lateral stress against the riser, the arrow has to shoot around the riser with a finger shooter. Because the way your
Yep.
fingers work into that, you're pushing that arrow. That's why they shoot a freaking plunger and stuff on that. Because you're shooting around it. We're shooting a release down the middle of a bow. We don't have this aspect that we have to worry about. And I see guys
Exactly.
they'll be back here for hours in the range, bear shaft tuning. And I'm like, what in
Yep.
the hell are you doing? When they're trying to get the arrows, some guys are trying to get the arrows in the same direction. Some guys are trying to get
Yep.
them in the same hole. I'm like, well, which concept are we working on when we talk about bear shaft tuning? And so they go, what do you do? I go, I get it close on paper, and then I walk back tune it, and then I will torque tune my sight. And I go, that works for me, and everything. I will torque tune on my competition bows. I will do the rest, but that's all I need to do. And I can't shoot any better than what that bow's going to shoot. I
Nope.
mean, that's going to shoot far better than I can ever shoot it.
It's gonna be a 2 hour episode when we get into that.
Yeah, I tell you, because I won't shut up about it. You know what I mean? I get worked up on it. It's pretty hot and heavy. Well, we better call it a wrap. What time is it? Yeah, we've been on for a while. Well,
Yeah.
that was a fun talk, man. I appreciate you. Um,
Yeah, this was good. It was
um,
nice to just be us for once.
yeah, yeah, we'll do some more like this. We got some good people coming up. I'm excited about what
Yeah.
we've got planned on the store. But we'll do some more. And folks, if there's stuff that you want us to talk about, or if you want to, hey, you guys are a bunch of idiots, what you guys are saying, comment below, let us know. I
Us.
need to know what's going on. But we hope that you guys like the podcast.
Yeah.
We enjoy doing them. It's fun talk. This is what we do in the pro shop. Exactly right here is what we talk about
Yep.
day in and day out. It's not always bitching and
Exactly.
moaning. Sometimes it's some good stuff too. But this is what we talk about. So,
Yeah.
like and subscribe. We'd appreciate it. And
Yeah. It
from
really
here,
helps
we'll
us
call it
out.
good, guys. Absolutely. All right, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a good night. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you guys later.
Later.